No, it's live.
Oh,
Good morning, welcome to the Thursday, June 5th, 2025 Parking, Traffic, and Safety meeting. Please call the roll.
Mary Lou McClellan.
Here.
Jimmy Mitchell Pete is absent. Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Erica Wygonic.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Jillian Harris, Planning Department.
Here.
And Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here. Please have the financial report. Oh, gotta do screen too.
Yeah.
Jane's
here.
Read stuff on it.
Clear.
James here.
Into 2025.
I get a motion to approve the report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, public comment, just come forward, there is no microphone, just one of the chairs, and this is the one opportunity in the meeting for public comment, and there's microphones in the ceiling, I guess, so everybody at home can hear you.
As long as they come to the table.
As long as you come to the chairs, one of the chairs.
Good morning, committee. Tyler Garza, 62 McKinley. As I said last month, the residential parking program makes sense. It facilitates dense residential development by addressing a key concern of existing residents. However, looking at the agenda, I do not support the mayor's free 30-minute parking for residents plan in any form. First, free parking is not free. It is stolen from the tax coffers for the least productive use. Surface parking does not even remotely pay for itself relative to the tax value of downtown property. Second, the mayor's plan cannibalizes the only people who might walk, bike, or take the climate action plan proposed circulator shuttle. Stop prioritizing cars above everything else. It is counter to city policy at this point. I want to quote Commissioner Bagley. People don't come to Portsmouth because of parking. They don't live in downtown Portsmouth or want to live in downtown Portsmouth because of the parking. They want to be in downtown Portsmouth because of the walkability, because of the community, because of the human scale of our downtown. And they're willing to put up with difficulties in parking so that they can do those things. That's from the May 5th City Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers for public comment?
Hi, I'm Jess. I've come before, and I live on the corner of Broad and South. We were in last for traffic calming measures on Broad, and a few different ideas that had like a range from repainting crosswalks up to speed tables, and it's been like an ongoing discussion. Mark and Scott have really been leading it primarily. I thought today was like a follow-up, but I think that this is just an open section where we just to keep voice concerns, but we don't really get any feedback as far as I understand right now.
That's correct.
So I guess I'm just here to say that I still have concerns and ask for you to please help. Here's what we can do. The traffic people still go faster than is posted, and it's still extremely busy, and if anything, it's just getting more busy with the summer and stuff. So,
Thank you, Jess.
thank you.
Any other?
Am I last?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to,
There's no
because I came in
formal
late.
order.
Did you want to speak?
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I didn't know high school started late.
Really?
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Kelly Shaw, Banfield Road. Okay. Sorry, Eric. Where do we begin? Banfield Road, now that it's springtime, but it's happened all winter again, tractor trailers are coming down the road again. I've watched them at Heritage and Ocean or Heritage and Banfield once they get stuck. And they cannot make the turn because of the guardrails. It's painful to watch. Also, we need better signage on Heritage and Constitution. I have noticed that and speeding on Constitution, actually, I've been noticing the police car there every morning, hidden so they can catch people, which is great. But it's just back up to business as usual with the box trucks, tractor trailers, post office, Bob's, National Truck Rental, FW Web, post office. And 50% of the time, there's no sign at Banfield and Ocean. The signs are constantly being broken by the trucks when they make the turn. They just shear them right off at the bottom because they cannot make the turn. And right now, all the signs are covered by the trees. We need better signage on Ocean Road both ways. The trucks are supposed to use Route 1, and we aren't supposed to have any air compression brakes on Banfield Road because we do have two ordinances. One ordinance is no trucks allowed on Banfield Road. I did call in text in a click and fix a couple days ago because we had dump trucks running back and forth on Banfield, and the response from Jamie was, no trucks are allowed on Banfield. Like, yeah, I already know that. And then I hear them at the post office because I can hear the dump truck, when they're taking out the dirt, banging. And they're speeding, and we've got grooves on Banfield Road where the speed bumps are. We shouldn't have grooves on Banfield Road. It's like a tractor trailer when you look at 33 when they have the ruts there to make the turn onto Ocean. I think the solution is better signage on Ocean. I've talked to the state says talk to you, Eric, back and forth. And right now the signs, there's not enough sight line in order to give them time to stay right on Ocean. And my other issue is back in October, I think it was 2016, at the time Victoria Shaheen sent a letter to the mayor, and we all had a copy of it. I forgot, I was rushing this morning. In regards if there was any change in ownership of Water Country, which there has been, that we would take a look at the entrance and exits of Water Country again. This has happened. Since they've been also working, they have cut through on Constitution to get to Water Country. They've taken down the sign for the 95 signs, which I think is great. But it still creates a problem, and I really believe with all the housing that's going in there that they can just open up West Road and use that road to exit out instead of directing them back down into the neighborhood. We've had enough problems there, and with the apartment going in and with new ownership with Water Country, that should have been addressed. I had no idea that it changed till I read it in the newspaper, and then it reminded me of what Victoria had indicated. If you need a copy of it, I'll send it to you, Andrew. And just one other housekeeping thing. Can we get mowed on Banfield on the island, please, Peter? Thank you. I think that's it. I'm just regurgitating what I've been regurgitating, and it's just, I've been averaging 3 to 5 tractor trailer trucks a day on Banfield. And that's just from Heritage to Ocean. So that's it. Thank you. I'm going to play pickleball.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Nice seeing you.
Hi, Mark McNabb, 51 Baycliff. I support the mayor's initiative for the free parking downtown. I don't consider it really a loss of revenue. I consider it a friendly accommodation for people who live here. You know, it's when you come in, if you're trying to scoot in quick or scoot out quick, we have about 80 various restaurants downtown, places that sell food or sell things. And trying to scoot in and scoot out, you know, to have one more layer to go to a kiosk and pay a credit card for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to pick up a cup of coffee or pick up a to-go is just a burden. So I don't really see it as a meaningful loss on revenue. The city has all kinds of parking, the majority of parking they don't charge for, being the residential neighborhoods, being free lots, being, so I don't think, I support the friendliness of that. And the other just side comment, I was downtown at 6 p.m. Saturday night. And I would just encourage maybe Public Works, if they could, come on a Friday at the end of the day, somebody, to just peek at your construction in the garage. There must have been 20 parking spaces that were just cordoned off that had nothing going on in construction at all on them. And people were circling the parking garage looking for spaces. And I'm only saying that I think you're far enough along in the garage that I think it should be optimized coming in the summer on the weekends to see, you know, did they just have leftover spaces that got coned and taped off, which happens a lot. You know, somebody will just do it. I know the 20 spaces I looked at wouldn't have been any issue whatsoever to have taken the tape and cones down. So I just encourage with the busy summer and the high use of the garage to just have somebody peek at optimization and make sure that you need to take the number of spaces out that you got out. Thank you.
Mark. All right, and I'll close the, we don't have anybody on Zoom. Close the public comment. Just so you, since we're not going to bring up Broad Street, the long and short of it, as I understand it, we've talked about this offline a couple times, is basically everything that we would be able to do would require relatively expensive infrastructure change, so it becomes more of a capital solution than a feasible solution for this committee. But there will be an update at a future meeting. But the reason there hasn't been an update so far is we just don't have a good solution yet.
Okay, could we just like, before the update, like put a little bit more focus on maybe, like maybe some of the ones that aren't quite so, capital would be like repainting the lines.
I'll try to prepare an email to send out to the group.
Okay, and then, I was like thinking about the timing of the light. That seems like, also, those two just off the top of my head seem like very cost effective.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the delay.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
We have directed our crews to repaint the crosswalks and add a crosswalk across Broad Street at South Street.
Oh, okay.
So there'll be stop lights and stop wires and.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that whole thing? So sorry.
Yes, our sign lines crew will be out to paint a crosswalk across Broad Street at South Street intersection.
Oh, okay.
And add a stop bar, and also at the Jones Ave end, we'll be repainting that crosswalk and adding a speed limit sign on Broad Street coming in from Jones.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, great.
those measures can be done.
Okay, those are great starts.
And the traffic signal timing is optimized. The problem is if you penalize one approach, you're going to have cut through in the other direction.
Yes.
It's hard to, you can't make time up out of nothing.
Yes, I did have a curiosity sort of on that note. Since all of that construction has been happening on Islington for so long, perhaps that has sort of tipped the balance, since that's like another main way like through town, and maybe like as that's wrapping up, it will help balance things.
I didn't hear the first part of your question, I'm sorry.
With all the construction that has been down Islington for so long, I wonder if that sort of congested things as well. It just seems like when you
Because this isn't on the agenda.
Totally,
Let's
yes.
do this
Yeah.
offline. Plus,
Okay.
I'm not sure how the new microphones work, so.
okay, yeah,
Because
that
we want to
sounds
have
right.
everything to
Yes,
be recorded.
yeah, so we'll just keep
But
an eye for
I'll
the
be in
agenda.
touch. I think I
Okay.
have your email.
If not, definitely Mark's. So
Okay, all right.
yeah.
I'll
Thank you
make sure I
very
get in
much.
touch. Alright, thank you. And then I just wanted to be, before I think I closed the public comment, but there won't be a chance to speak on items on the agenda, Mark. If you were gonna speak to any of them, this would be your chance to speak to them.
Okay, it would be, all right.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
great, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I sometimes forget protocol. I'm gonna speak to the desire to, I'm gonna call it close, but I don't mean permanently. A small section of Porter Street as it connects to Pleasant. If you come down Porter, that last small section, which is, there's two buildings that have frontage along the entire part of it. 10 Pleasant Street, which I own that building, where City Shoes and the main pottery is located, used to be Stonewall Kitchen. And Eric Chinberg owns Custom House on the other side. We both support what I'm bringing up. I also went to the city's charrettes on the group they hired for studying Market Square and improvements. I went to all of them, and it was very overwhelmingly desirable for people to return some streets, even this specifically, even the wider Pleasant Street as it comes to State Street, for outside uses, for something different than just cars. So this is kind of a baby step. It just got triggered when I saw the city repaving Church Street and doing all that. And if you look at Custom House, I don't think the city should be keeping alive sidewalks that are so woefully inadequate. It's approximately a 30-inch wide sidewalk on Custom House, and it's just not safe with curbs. So to make that area more friendly, I really want to dump the curbs on both sides and do it similar to like what we did at the music hall. And that wouldn't preclude police or fire or anybody being able to drive down there. It would calm that intersection. All these cross intersections downtown are really busy. They're really confusing. There's blind spots on cars when you come on that Porter and pull onto Pleasant with the parking right there. Very busy area. I don't think we should encourage lots of ways to circle around the block to get into Market Square. Market Square is delicate. Market Square is crowded, really crowded with people. So for all of those reasons, I would like to close off that area and have it an outdoor area. I would not be opposed at all to seeing it be part of the sidewalk program and having the restaurant in the other building have outside dining in part of it. I'm willing to commission a public art somewhere. Wouldn't prohibit driving. I think it would be fun to put some piece of artwork. And then come back with a landscape plan with some trees and some greenery. And on the Pleasant Street side, at least as long as Pleasant Street is open in its current use with parking on both sides, the city will probably pick up about 3 parking spaces in the diagonal. So actually, this is one of the requests that actually doesn't eliminate parking. On the Porter Street side, it would be really helpful to just have a little turnoff there for deliveries. Right now, they stop in Church Street on my building and the other buildings, and they just block a travel lane. That's really all they got. So on the Porter Street side, I'd like to just see a little pull-off for a loading zone for that side. And on the Pleasant Street, pick up some parking spaces. And, if it determines after some period of time that it doesn't work, we're not, this is something that's easy to just reopen it. We did it on Chestnut Street, for anybody who might have remembered. We did a trial program for 6 months and closed it. Might have even been longer, I don't remember. And through that, we said, it didn't really work. And so, these trial programs of these streets, there's only so many things we can think of. There's always an anomaly. I'm sure somebody can come up with a condition where something would happen and boy, you wish you could drive in that little connector on Porter. There's a risk keeping it with the added traffic and pedestrians, and there's a risk partially saying let's return it to public area. It's not perfect, it's an attempt, but I do think the amount of cut-throughs that people can circle blocks and blocks to look for parking and hunt at the expense of Market Square is not good. I do recognize when the bridge is up that there are people that like to scoot in here, there, and everywhere, but it doesn't really accomplish a lot when you think about it. It's worth the risk trying this. I'm offering it to pay for it all. I'm not asking the city to pay anything. So I'd like to donate this as a outdoor improvement. It's a donation of art. It's a donation of hardscape, streetscape, landscape. And quite frankly, it's a donation to the coffers because you pick up 3 parking spaces, and those parking spaces are high revenue spaces. I don't know what they are, 10,000 a year, 20, 15. So I think it's a win-win to try it, and I'm willing to accept the condition that if it doesn't work, it will be reopened to traffic. So that's what I would like everyone to consider, and if it's favored, I would love to see a favorable recommendation from this committee, and I'll be meeting with Bill and Mark, the police chief and fire chief, to vet out any concerns they have, or hopefully get their support even if it has conditions. And then from this committee and those buy-in, I would like to forward it to the city council for consideration to allow this to happen. Any questions?
Thank you, Mark. And we'll be taking that up shortly.
Thank you.
Okay, no presentations? New business, Chapter 7, Article 3, Traffic Ordinance, Limited Parking, Discussion Recommendation to the City Council on Two alternatives. 1, conversion of 25 15-minute spaces to free 30-minute resident spaces in the downtown meter parking area, or 2, 15 minutes of free parking for residents in any meter space using the Park Mobile application. And before the discussion gets going, I'll speak to it quickly. The assistant mayor and the mayor brought forward a proposal to council for option 1, which would be taking the vast majority of the 15-minute spaces downtown and turning them into resident-only spaces for half an hour. The second proposal, I had some issues with that plan that I'll go into further. The second proposal would be 15 minutes of free parking for residents in all the street parking spaces downtown, with the requirement that you have to be signed up for the resident discount on Park Mobile. And when you start a Park Mobile session, it basically wouldn't charge you until minute 16. So it's not 15 minutes free and you don't have to start a session. It's 15 minutes free when you start a session, which gives us an ability to enforce. And it also gives residents the ability, if they want to stay downtown for half an hour, they can, they get the first 15 minutes free and then they can park for as long as they want to pay for after that. So those are kind of the two proposals that council has asked for our feedback on, and we can also recommend an entirely different proposal. Mark?
Has city staff, and I agree with Mark, it's probably a minor number, but what's the revenue loss on that, on these changes? Has a number been put on that, a ballpark?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Just so the public knows.
So at this point, we have initial numbers that we've looked at, Mark, but I'm hesitant to speak to the revenue loss because, as you know, the parking division is structured to manage behavior, and currently we are at capacity relative to our parking inventory and beyond capacity much of the time. So anything that makes it easier for people to drive into town and pop out and do a quick errand uses up inventory that would be potentially used by other businesses and things like that. As you recall, we recently completed a parking study that had goals or parking principles associated with that, and the Park Once principle was one of those. So the idea is that people would park and stay in a location for duration and then turn within a 3-hour period. So the concern that staff has is that in terms of behavioral challenges, that we'd be incentivizing people that would potentially, walk to town or ride their bicycle to town or scooter to town to just pop in a car and change their behavior. So being able to put a dollar value specifically to the impact, I think it would be difficult to do that out of the gate. We know that there's, whether the resident is charged or not, the city would be charged per session, whether it was a 15-minute session or whether it was a 3-hour session or not. So there would be a cost associated with the program. And depending upon the utilization, that cost would increase or decrease. And the concern really comes down to is it creates an incentive to utilize the parking in a way that our whole program is structured to not incentivize and not. We would rather have, people use alternative modes to come into town and to walk to town and to ride their bikes to town.
And that's the policy.
That is the parking principles
let me
that have been adopted.
Jump in here. So we have parking principles, which Peter said and is correct. And I don't think we should be too concerned with the revenue either way, because there's ways to mitigate any revenue loss that we can get into later. But there's two schools of thought, and I agree with both what in public comment with what Tyler and Mark said. Is one, it's kind of a gift. The theory is it's kind of a gift to the residents and an incentive to get them to come downtown. And that would be a policy decision. From a pure efficiency standpoint of behavior management, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. We should not disincentivize people to walk downtown or ride their bike downtown with free parking, because one, it uses up inventory, and two, it runs counter to our climate action plan, where we're encouraging people to use motor vehicles when they might not necessarily have to. The flip side to that, and I do believe there's arguments that are good on both sides, is we want our residents to come downtown and we want them to feel welcome downtown, and this is potentially a way to do that. So I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer here. It's ultimately going to be a political decision by the council in which direction to go. My sense is that something will happen. So what I'm hopeful for here, and I believe at EDC tomorrow, is we come up with good options for the council to pick from.
I got another question to ask or comment to make just based on the public input that I'm hearing. That was number one. Number two is, can you remind the public of what percentage was it 96% of parking is out of town?
96% of the
Usage.
park mobile usage is that way. The actual number is, is probably up in the 90s, but it's hard to differentiate that because we're using data based on the Park Mobile app only. And Mike, what percent of the transactions are now Park Mobile? Do you know?
It's tough to say because, to be honest, we are, with the addition of the tax office, they're signing people up now when they register the vehicle, which...
Mike, could you come up? Because I don't know if the microphones work. I don't know how the new microphones work, to be honest.
So
In the past, Mike, though, what was how much was it? 80% of transactions or 60% of transactions?
It varied by month. Obviously, wintertime we had a little bit more, but it was, maybe 3 or 4%. I see that obviously changing, where we have a lot more people signing up with the tax office, just because it's a huge convenience for for residents to be able to sign up right when they...
So just to explain what Mike's saying is that when people register their car now, they have the option to automatically sign up for the Park Mobile discount. So there's a form that you sign and that it automatically signs up, and we've seen an increase in usage since that. So that 96% has changed. It's probably closer to 93 or 92
But that's a number
at this
too.
time.
So you just said it. There's an increase. So more and more people are going to use it, and that's what's going to drive free 15-minute parking. Is more people in the residents using it. So you're definitely going to get more usage from the residents, knowing that the word "free's" out there for 15 minutes. You can do a lot in 15 minutes.
So,
not too much, but
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
the thing for everybody to remember is that the Parking Special Revenue Fund is intended to be structured as an enterprise fund. It is intended to be a self-supporting system, and it's been very successful over the last 20 years, spinning off significant investment for the downtown and supporting services that everybody enjoys. To the average or median household tax bill, it's roughly $500 off of their bill. So the idea of giving things to residents, I understand the desire to make things easier for folks to come in, and we will support however we can. But I need to stress that we have a program that it's a professionally run program, it's a structured program, and that changes like this can have significant impacts. So, you know, I just would encourage folks to take our time to really evaluate this. There's been another number of communities that we've researched that have done these types of things, and the feedback from them is not positive, that they would not encourage us to pursue some of the actions that are out there. That does not mean the 15-minute free is not something that we would do, but anything more than 15 minutes free was looked at in a manner that was, you know, it would be making more problems for operations. Because you can imagine, as a resident, you come in, I get 15 minutes free, you pop in, oh, it's 16, 17 minutes, I was just going to get a cup of coffee, Mike's guys are out there writing a ticket, and then the conflicts with residents
That's why you have to tie it
escalates.
to a park mobile session.
Right, but even, I was just popping in, I have 15 minutes free. You know,
But you
it's
don't
like,
unless you have a session.
I understand that, but you need to be on the receiving end of the ticket writers to truly understand how these types of changes can impact operations. It has significant impacts on operations. So we will.
And I agree with what you're saying, Peter, but that being said, I don't think what you could potentially call our position has enough votes to pass. I think something's going to be implemented, if I had to guess, at the council level. Erica?
What's the problem this is trying to solve?
Making people feel happier about coming downtown, I guess.
Well, I think the questions he asked and what fueled all this was my understanding.
What fuels this is there's a lot of people that say, why can't we get 15 minutes free? And the vast majority of those questions get directed to the council, and the vast majority of questions that get directed to the council typically go to the mayor or the assistant mayor. And I think they thought, well, that's not a terrible idea, let's consider it. I don't want to speak for them, but I think that's kind of the genesis of how this.
I mean, I think, like, thinking about what are we actually trying to solve, it's important in terms of figuring out what is a good solution.
And the mayor articulated, and we'll add one more thing is, you know, we want to incentivize our residents to come downtown. So on a day like today, it's wonderful to walk downtown. In the middle of February when it's sleeting out, you know, having that 15 minutes free might encourage you to come downtown, whereas you certainly probably weren't thinking of walking downtown. So it's kind of a carrot to get residents to enjoy their downtown.
I have a number of concerns, many of which have already been articulated in terms of, I think it's adding a lot of complexity to our system. I think it's throwing a curveball into a very well-functioning system that it, as a standalone, carefully managed system, I don't know that it will work as well with these additional details. I agree that it's taking, like, that, there's a high value to parking. That real estate is incredibly valuable. And I think we have a lot of mixed messages. We have propositions to close streets so they're open for parking. We have a lot of work that's being done on the Market Square area about trying to tighten up the roads and regain that real estate. And at the same time, we're talking about free parking everywhere. Like, those things are in conflict at some level. I think another concern I have that I don't think has been addressed as much, we have spent a lot of time thinking about parking and how to manage our parking, both our staff that works hard at doing that, and also a huge effort to look into what we want to do about parking, how we're going to manage parking. There's been a lot of work that's done around resident parking permits and trials, and all of those things have been done thoughtfully and carefully and strategically. And it feels like this initiative is just come out of nowhere and is barreling through the gates And maybe it's gonna be fine, but we haven't, like, it needs more thought and consideration to see what the downstream impacts of that are and how it's gonna change the way we manage parking and change the cost implications. You know, it doesn't, maybe it looks good on paper or it's a nice PR campaign to be like free 15 minutes of parking, but if we're already getting $500, each household is getting $500 right now from parking. Would I rather get $500 from parking or park free for 15 minutes to the like handful of extra times I end up going downtown? That's, I mean, I'm overly simplifying there, but you know, one maybe is a easier soundbite, but that doesn't mean it's better for me as a resident. I also think, like, in terms of management, you have to sign up for Park Mobile and you have to be a resident, but we have a lot of renters. Like, what happens when someone rents in town and then they move out of town, but they're still showing up in the system as a resident for free parking, right? Like, I just think it's a management nightmare, and having it done through Park Mobile helps some, but we've heard a ton of testimony over the past couple months with discussions about 15-minute parking spaces that our parking staff, like, they're not making 15-minute rounds. That's not realistic to manage. They can't enforce that. And so, I don't know, this doesn't, to me, this initiative seems like it needs a little bit more thought and evaluation before it is advanced.
Jane?
Is there a policy change that's also being proposed for the current 15-minute parking inventory that's going along with this?
That's the question.
Another
It's either or.
right?
It's so we have two proposals we could recommend, or we could come up with a third proposal along the lines of what Erica just said, that we really don't think this is a good idea. I mean, we're a recommendation body to the council, and it's up to them to choose or ignore our recommendations. But we don't have to recommend something if we don't think it makes sense. Like, we don't have to pick from option 1 or option 2. We can come up with option 3, or we can do a ranked choice. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, what are we considering anything around, like, we've talked about the 15-minute parking spaces and like how difficult it is to enforce. Are we considering including a change to those as a part of this?
That would be one of the options. I'm personally think that's a worse option because I know a lot of people that go downtown that work in town but aren't Portsmouth residents, and they'll run in and get a sandwich at the sandwich shop for like their whole office, and they'll park in the 15-minute spaces. If we convert those to 30-minute resident-only spaces, that seems like it would be disruptive to those types of transactions, which I think are beneficial for the businesses, especially when somebody's coming in and they're picking up, 5 or 10 sandwiches for a whole office. I feel like that's a healthy bit of revenue for places. And if we convert 15 minutes to 30 minutes resident only, I think we might have a lot of unintended consequences.
They're not tied together though.
They're not tied together.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Mary Lou?
I think we should keep it status quo. I think this is complicated. I totally agree with what Erica has said. I wouldn't agree with 30 minutes free at all. I think that just puts a negative spin on a parking downtown. It's not a positive spin. I've talked with a lot of people. Does 30 minutes free mean that you're going to come downtown? No. And I think the 15-minute times work for many reasons. The businesses like it. I think it's just too complicated. We've gone through 15-minute parking issues for years. And I think this is going through too fast with the council. I don't agree with either one of the proposals. Enough said.
Mark?
I'd say no to option 1, but option 2 with a 15-minute. Every year, was it November, October, the city council decides on holiday parking?
Pretty
Is it
much.
Annual, okay.
It's ad hoc, but yeah.
So that gives plenty of time for us to weigh in at a future meeting. If you have a trial at Christmas time, during the holiday. If the city council is gonna be talking about the holiday, they might as well talk about 15-minute parking.
If we-
Can you have a trial for that period of time?
Politically, it would be very hard to call back free parking if you could.
Well, it's a
if you have
trial.
it.
It's only.
I don't
If
anticipate a
I
trial
may,
working.
Mr. Chair, the challenge, Mark, is that you have, in order to enable the proposed program, you have to create a structure in Park Mobile, and you have to populate that, and you have to have that whole system. So there's no way for us to know when a session starts unless somebody enters into Park Mobile, so that we say, okay, that car, the start of the session, they're a resident, they're there for 15 minutes, walk on by. If you come around again and you see that resident there still, you say, okay, they started the session an hour and a half ago, they're still there, they get a ticket. And, the argument will likely be, oh, I left and came back, I've only been there 15 minutes.
So this is all just complicated then.
It is, but
It's complicated.
The keep it simple kind of idea that Erica mentioned is, doing a trial of something like this would just, because people wouldn't know if it was active, and then you'd have a year of people thinking the trial was still happening if we stopped it. I think a trial is not feasible.
The holiday parking is an annual trial. There's so many pros and.
Well, we've changed that now, so it's in the garages and it's
Yeah.
straightforward. Gene?
So the proposal is also 15 minutes. It's your first 15 minutes of your parking session are free. So it's effectively just like a deeper discount on like what residents already have a discounted parking rate.
Right, so we currently charge $2 for all on-street parking. Residents, if they've signed up for the Park Mobile discount, pay $1.25, so they get a 75% discount. I can't do the math in my head real quick, but effectively it would be, they'd get a 100% discount for that first 15 minutes.
Right.
And then they'd get the lesser discount for the next rest of the parking session.
So how much does this actually cost for 15 minutes? It's like 30 cents? I usually put in a quarter and dash in and dash out.
It depends on how you utilize the system. If you're using a credit card, there's a minimum hour because the cost of the transaction outweighs the value that we would
Exactly.
receive to cover that cost.
So I think that is a factor in this. What does it really cost for somebody to go and put their quarter in or use, go ahead.
Want to clarify, residents don't pay that convenience fee for Park Mobile.
Right.
Non-residents do. So we're able to, the non-residents subsidize the residents' use of credit cards, in this case, because we collect 35 cents per transaction from the non-resident, it costs 25 cents. We take that dime that we get from the non-residents and cover the cost of the 25 cent per transaction for residents. So that
We might be getting a little in the weeds here.
we are, but it's important to understand that
Yes.
this is not a simple system.
That's right.
There's a lot going into it, and you pull the threads on a carpet, and you can.
It takes longer to use Park Mobile than to put my quarter in to the meter and run into get coffee.
Erica?
Would the 30-minute parking also be Park Mobile? Or is that just a space that nominally is signed for 30 minutes and then you gotta move?
Are you talking about the option that we convert the 15-minute to 30-minute? That would be resident only. Those 25 spaces in the system would be converted to 30-minute resident only. So a resident would pull up and have 30 minutes to be able to jump into the store, come out, do whatever they want to do.
But do they have to do Park Mobile for that to happen?
I don't believe so. It would be a plate registration. I think the way it was going to be structured is that the plate, you'd still have to have the plate in the system when you go to, you voluntarily sign up on that, and it would be in our system to be able to look up.
Chief?
In an effort to sort of move the issue here, right? Understanding that there is some perhaps leeriness of this proposal, whatever it may be, and that at the end of the day, as the chairman said, that we merely recommend to the council, they're going to institute the policy, and where we're talking about 75 cents an hour or less, I'm just going to move that we forward to the city council both recommendations and let them choose from those two options. If there's a second.
I second that.
Yep.
I second that. It's a political issue. So I think the city, I mean, they want a recommendation, but I also think they should be talking more and looking into it more. They have access to the same information from staff that we do, because we're asking questions, I'm asking questions, but Ben's not here, and it's hard to make a quick, snappy decision, where they could actually, take their time and really look into it. So I'm gonna stay with a second on what he just said. Send it back to city council for clarification.
Erica?
I think our job as a board is to provide advice to city council. And they don't have to listen to us, but I think it's our job to provide our advice. We are not all necessarily experts in this, but we hear these issues every month, and we're more knowledgeable in this area than the average citizen resident because we're here every month hearing about all these issues. So I think it's relevant for us to provide some reaction. I would prefer a motion. I was thinking after last month, I have to educate myself on Robert's rules better because clearly it's not my strength. So I don't know what the right protocol is here. I would prefer a motion that is, we think this requires more evaluation, and I don't support either option. I can't at this point in time, I don't feel comfortable supporting either option. I would need more information. So if they're looking for our input at this point, that is the message I would like to send is I don't know enough to suggest either of these. I would like to see more evaluation.
Okay, so just from Robert's rules, there's the motion on the table, which we can continue to discuss which we should have had a motion originally. We can then, if the discussion goes one way, the motion could be rescinded, voted up or voted down. And then there could always be a future motion that said, the PTS committee believes that this needs more study before we can make a reliable recommendation to council. And we could even, or however, if council wants to move quickly, which we don't advise, we think option A or option B is better, or neither option is worthwhile and you should come up with a new option. So we have that flexibility to modify. I think if we do recommend option A or option B to council, probably one of those will get picked. And I would say, speaking just as myself as a counselor, I don't watch every planning board meeting or HDC meeting or arts committee meeting. I rely on those committees to make recommendations to us, and then I look at the recommendations and make my decision from there. Because if I don't have the knowledge or the time to know all the details from every committee. So I'm really relying on those committees to make good recommendations to me. So I do think it's important that if we have strong feelings one way or the other, that we acknowledge that somehow in our recommendation to council. And it does sound like there's strong feelings.
Yeah, I would agree that whatever we do recommend, that I don't think we should move forward in saying either one is fine, you guys choose. I don't think that I do think that we should say one way or another. And I don't think that I've heard really anyone in favor of anything related to the conversion of the current 15-minute spaces. So I do think we should also include that in our recommendation, that we're not necessarily leaning in favor of that one.
Yes, I think it needs further clarification, but I would like it to come back to our committee before the city council votes on it, if that's possible. I do know that they have first reading.
We can request that, but that's technically, we can't require it.
I know. It's a good request, though.
Yes.
I know that the first reading is next Monday. I think I read that.
That's correct, but we could have 5 first readings in a row, so don't worry too much about the first reading.
Okay, so I think definitely it needs more clarification. I would not vote for either choice at this point, and I think there should be some way for us to get our point across through you to city council.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
The motion that's going to council on the 9th is the converting 25 15-minute spaces to 30-minute. It's not either or. It's a single, because it would have to start again, get the other one.
Okay.
But
And-
what-
and I
but-
think
but
whatever-
what's- I'm sorry, if I.
Yeah.
But what was asked of us was to bring these two forward to the PTS as well as EDC, Economic Development Committee, so that a discussion could happen. So that was what was asked was, that's why you're seeing both of these
Yeah, so
options.
There's a lot of regulations around first reading, like it has to be posted in the newspaper, I think, and online for a certain number of days. So once we do that formal process, that's what the first reading is going to be. So we can't change that. However, what we often do at the council level is we make changes and then we repost another first reading or I
okay.
can't remember second.
Okay.
So that just because the first reading is going forward, it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way. It could stay that way.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity to make drastic changes to it or for it to ultimately
Okay.
not pass.
Good, because that's
So, but
that's
there are
what my
some legal
concern was.
reasons about how things are posted.
Yeah.
Mark?
We got a motion and a second. I think once we get past that,
Are you calling the question?
yes, let's vote.
Okay. And I think it would send a message. We don't have a lot of split votes in PTS. I think if there's a split vote, so we'll do a roll call.
So read the motion again.
Chief, would you be able to rephrase
Yeah,
that?
sure, I'm happy to. Motion to send forward both proposals back to the city council with our recommendation that they adopt one.
And Mark, you agree that?
Yeah, just send it
Okay.
back to them, let them decide, because they put us in a position of 1 versus 2, so if they would've just said 1, then we can really focus on it, but since it's 2, let's send it back and have them come up with 1.
Clarification.
You're not necessarily gonna send that back to us to.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think if this motion were to pass and we can vote however we want to vote, I think that the city council would probably pick one of those two options, pending what the recommendation from EDC is. So if you're voting yes, it's likely that one of those two would probably get adopted. If you vote no, we can make a second motion.
So if we vote no, it means we don't agree with either.
That's right. Or yes. Well, it doesn't,
Or we're not indifferent.
we're not indifferent. It means you're not indifferent.
The motion is
You,
send them
if you vote no, it means you want to have input.
Okay. Did you get it?
Mary Lou McKelman,
No.
Jane Mitchell Pate,
No.
Mark Siracusa,
No.
Erica Wygonick,
No.
Deputy Police Chief Maloney,
Yes.
Fire Chief McClellan,
Yes.
Public Works Director Rice,
No.
Jillian Harris, Planning, and Chairman Bagley.
No. And in the spirit of moving things along, perhaps we could recommend, or somebody could make a motion that PTS thinks this is a considerable change to a well-working program. We would like the time for further study. However, of the two options, we have a preference for, are they numbered? We don't have a preference.
No, I just said
I-
no.
We don't think either option is viable then.
That's right.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, the implementation of a program be phased with the budget cycle. As you may all know, we put together budgets based on revenue projections, based on these rules that we have in place. Changing those rules questions the revenue projections, which makes it difficult to budget. So I would think we'd want to phase that, tie it to a any change be phased into, either show that we can cover the revenue losses or, maybe increases, or show that we have modifications to other rates to be able to offset the loss in revenue. So so the answer is yes. The vote would be to further investigate what would be an appropriate and.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make
I
a
would-
motion.
I will-
Eric,
Just simplify it.
I like
Motion
the
say no.
beginning of Counselor Bagley's motion.
Just make it from the start if you could.
Yeah, good luck with that. I liked the way you worded it though, so I don't know if we wrote that down, but
There's something along the lines, the PTS committee believes that we have a well-functioning system
yep,
that would require more study for a drastic change such as this.
I think, yes, PTS believes we have a well-functioning system and that a drastic change such as this requires further evaluation, I would like to add, we have considerable concerns about the two proposals that have been made.
Okay.
That's my personal feeling. People don't have to agree with that, but that's
Let's
the
get a-
motion that
that's a
I will
good
make.
motion.
Let's get a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, and now we can open up for discussion.
Can he read that? I know
You guys got my work cut out.
You have a-
Appreciate it.
You have appreciation for the role Kelly does at council.
Had a nice
The
warm
acid
up.
test, that's right.
And
It's fresh.
that if any change is made, it should coincide with or be aligned with the budget cycle?
I would leave that out for now.
Okay.
I don't want to make this a revenue discussion because I think it's a political discussion. And if you add revenue in it, it becomes a different discussion.
I understand, but, you know, I want council to understand that revenues are what pay for the operation.
No, I'm fully aware. I just think
But it has impacts, so I just want people to
I
be
think
aware.
if we talk about it simply first, we have a better chance of coming to a
Understood.
good.
All right, so, motion on the floor, is to stress that PTS believes we have a well-functioning system and any drastic change would require evaluation.
Any drastic change such as this would require evaluation.
The minutes will also be generated from the recording, so, you know, we'll
And-
capture that language better.
We have concerns about both of these proposals. That's my motion.
Options.
People can second or not second. I
It's already
think
been
Mary
seconded.
Lou
I think second it. I did second it, yeah.
I would put
And call the
myself in
motion.
that. Oh, you're gonna call the okay. We'll need a
Move
roll call
discussion.
vote again.
Need a roll call. Okay.
Sorry.
That's
This is like
all
a
right.
real good, like,
Do you take shorthand?
I'm gonna have to
My
learn
next
how to. All right, roll call vote, Mary Lou McKellen,
Yes.
Jane Mitchell Pate,
Yes.
Mark Siracusa,
Yes.
Erica Wygonick,
yes.
Deputy Police Chief Maloney.
If I say yes to both motions, they're somewhat contradictory, but I do support this second motion. Can I vote independently yes for this second motion?
Yes,
Then yes.
Fire Chief McQuillan,
No.
Public Works Director Rice,
Yes.
Jillian Harris,
Yes.
and Chairman Beckley.
Yes.
All right, that is 1, 2, 3.
Spirited discussions.
That is 8 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to council that I will do my best to.
We'll be watching.
Watching you.
Yeah, we'll be watching.
Are you at the EDC too?
I'm
We'll
not
chime
planning
in.
to be.
I'll be there.
All right, so hopefully we'll be a little faster. with
Front row seat, Mary Lou's gonna be there.
The Chapter 7, Article 5, bicycle regulations, discussion of a need for local restrictions, enforcement, and regulations on e-bikes. And there's some info in the packet, but
So,
was there an action
Mr.
required
Chair,
of the committee?
this came about as I was driving downtown and noticed a youth on an e-bike. It's really not an e-bike, it really should be called an e-motorcycle.
Yeah.
And the individual was using Haven Park as a BMX or a motocross course, catching air off the bump, coming around, wrapping around, and I proceeded to engage the young person and went, he took off. And noticed a buddy of his doing the same thing on Langdon Park, launching himself off, and it just seems like, you know, I understand the state's in flux relative to these bikes, and they're not really bicycles, they're electric motorcycles, but it seems like to me somebody's gonna get hurt. I've seen these kids going downtown, pulling, wheelies without helmets and ripping through traffic. I just feel like we need to give the police some tools so that they can have clear direction on how to do this. Because I'm not sure, Deputy Chief, you could speak to it if I'm off base, but I'm concerned somebody's gonna get hurt. Whether it's a kid or whether it's somebody else that's in the way.
Or somebody who hits him.
Chief?
If I may, yeah. So we've already had kids seriously hurt on e-bikes. It's you may not be aware of it, but we've had a number of instances with mostly juveniles riding e-bikes who have sustained serious injuries, and it's not necessarily with a crash with a motor vehicle. It's a crash on their own. For those of you that may have seen it, within the last week, there was a fatal e-bike crash down in Hampton. So last month, I know the chief spoke a little bit about the initiative that the police department is starting with respect to e-bikes and e-bike regulations. I met with a group of officers a few weeks ago about an awareness, education, and enforcement campaign on all things related e-bike. Have a first draft of a brochure which I can hand around, which consolidates many of the e-bike laws and regulations because they can be confusing. An e-bike can fall into the category of what they call an OCEV, which is otherwise treated as like a dirt bike or a ATV. So it would essentially, some of them may fall into the category of an OHRV, which then has its own set of rules and regulations. There are several classes of e-bikes. During our research, we were able to find, and we were able to drill down on a considerable amount of enforceable laws and applicable statutes that we can enforce with respect to e-bikes and the type of behaviors that Peter described. We are partnering with SABRE, New Hampshire Bike Walk Alliance, and a number of local e-bike stores and bike shops. Our first step was to have the internal meeting, create the informational brochure, which is both for parents, e-bike riders, and law enforcement. And a second step is I've already contacted the external group of stakeholders, including SABRE and the other folks. We're going to share with them the information that we've discovered so far to date, ask for their input and their guidance. The second, third, and fourth step would be to have a type of an awareness and education session, perhaps at the Portsmouth Library probably. Third step would be to work with the rec department and look at hosting some type of public event partnership between police department and the different bike groups and bike shops over at the skate park, rail trailhead, really kind of get the message out. And we're aiming kind of to do this and to push something out before the end of school so that we can get stuff out via Parent Square and the school. While everybody's still plugged into school emails and schools, is to put something out before the end of the season, school season, to kind of get the awareness of what we're doing here. What Peter had mentioned, the gap that we may find that we've discovered in our group is that we may be short on local ordinances or regulations when it comes to not necessarily e-bikes, but insert mode of travel here, e-scooter, e-electric ball that balances on either side, e-skateboard that I have a remote in my hand and my skateboard can go 25 miles an hour. Those are the weird e-things that are certainly less regulated than e-bikes. E-bikes we have a pretty good handle on, the different classes, where they can go, whether you need a helmet depending on what age. The e-scooters, the e-blank, whatever, those are the ones where it gets a little bit trickier. And we're hoping to get some more guidance from our folks with the Bike Walk Alliance, SABRE, and the other bike shops. And we're going to probably have that meeting with them, that first meeting next week. So,
That's great.
That's the bike update.
I got a question for the chief.
Yep.
I know the fire chiefs has a Seacoast Chiefs Association. Does the police have that?
It's the Rockingham County Chiefs Association.
Okay, so you do have that. So you could reach out to UNH and see what they're using for their models and and awareness. It seems like they have a lot of what Steve Petchy used to call devices.
Yeah, we've looked at it.
Yeah.
This is a great brochure.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, well, that's one of our officers made that up.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's a draft. It'll be bigger, a little nicer, and again, that's just the first draft that came out, but we'll look to tighten that up in the next day or two.
And what is happening at the state level with legislation, with what's going on?
I'm not aware of a lot that's happening.
We'll wait for feedback from Jane Farini on that, because they go through so many iterations and changes that it doesn't really make sense for us to
I was just curious.
spend too much time on what's in process.
Yeah.
Until it
In short,
all the way through.
e-bikes, class 1, 2, and 3, they have to follow the rules of the road as a bicyclist, period, end of story. Stop at stop signs, wear helmets, go with the flow of traffic. So there are more regulations. It's the awareness of it. And, to Peter's point too, when we see one of these e-bikes that looks very much like a dirt bike with a headlight, brake lights, that whole thing, by looking at it, I can't tell if that's a class 1, 2, or 3, or actually exceeds a class 3. And now it's technically considered an OHRV, unless you actually stop, take a look at it and inspect it. Does it have a motor over 750 watts? We're also hearing that you can have a class 2 or a class 3 e-bike, but you can modify it if you get the right parts on the internet. That makes a class 2 or 3 actually something faster and more dangerous. So that's why we're kind of leaning on our counterparts with the bike shops and the Bike Walk Alliance to kind of give us the inside scoop on these. We've also learned that many of these e-bikes purchased by parents, and that's really want to get the message to just as much is the parents and the people who are purchasing and funding the e-bikes, is that a lot of them are leased because they're so expensive. So kid might get an e-bike, lease it for 6 months, get another one and lease it. So that's kind of the insight that we've gotten from broadening our group to not just PD, but that's the Bike Walk Alliance there, but pulling in all the resources we can.
Thank you, Chief. Oh, Erica.
I think that educating parents is important here. I think if we want to get to the cohort I see using them are all kind of middle school age kids, so I think reaching out to the middle school is, I think, really critical. I think the idea of going to the skate park is really good. I don't know if there's a way to reach out to the folks that helped organize the skate park to maybe say, hey guys, like, can you send this message down so it's less of a, like, more community support, I feel like the folks that helped make the skate park happen have a degree of respect in that community that would help to say, like, people are concerned for you. Like, we're worried about your safety. And because of that, we know that the police are going to start enforcing laws that, start thinking a little bit before some of the things that you're
Well, and that's exactly why we engage those other folks that don't have a badge, which is your Seacoast Area Bike Riders, Hampshire Bike Walk Alliance, Rad Moto, Gus's Bikes, Seacoast E-Bikes, all those other people. That's not law enforcement. Whether it's on the counter at their shop, there's a QR code to our brochure or something. Unfortunately, the parents can be a great tool, and they can also not help, because I know there's been a number of times that we've taken an enforcement action or talked to a parent about a kid riding a bike, and quite frankly, the parents don't care and the parents don't change the behavior. So we can suggest to the parents all day long what we would like to see them do with their kid, and at the end of the day, if they don't agree with it or care, the kid's going to continue to do what they do. And we've seen that a number of times already, and it's frustrating on our part because we're doing our part, but we're not getting the help from home that we would like to see. So
I guess that's why I was thinking, like, community leaders, like non-structured community leaders. And that's why I was thinking the folks that helped organize the skate park might be a good way of, like, we take care of each other. This isn't your parents, this isn't the police, this is like peers kind of saying, or slightly older peers saying, hey guys, you're gonna make trouble for all of us if you can't rein in your behavior. I don't know.
Sure.
Sorry, I know you want to move
Well,
on.
actually, in the interest of, because, hang on, this is just for discussion now, Chief. And this, I think you brought forward something that's great.
Yeah.
It's helpful, and that brochure looks great, so I'm looking forward to when it's finished. If you need anything from us or a recommendation for future laws, I would bring it
I think
back.
that's part of it too, is that we're looking at what gaps there may be at state or local level, and I'll certainly report back,
I think this is the start of the discussion, but I want to move on to.
I have to leave at 10.
Okay.
That's
All right, let's move on to item C, which is Porter Street, request to consider closing the section between Church Street and Pleasant Street to vehicle traffic by resident and adjacent property owner Sample motion is moved to refer to city staff for review and report back at future
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
And I think just to, my recommendation is there are a couple properties there that let out onto Church Street that during events downtown need to use Porter Street because of the way they reconfigure everything during Market Square. So I hope that staff can reach out to the residents. I know there are not a lot of them, but for that discussion.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And then D, Pierce Island off-leash dog area, request for signage alerting drivers to use of the area by residents. Move to refer to staff for recommendation and report back at next meeting.
So moved.
Why
I mean,
could that come here?
I don't know.
do we need to,
We've gotten
Study
this
this?
issue many times on C-Click Fix. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's a road to the sewage treatment plant. It's an off-leash dog area. The rules are with an off-leash dog area, you need to keep under voice control of your dog and be observed. It's up to the dog owner's responsibility not to let it run into the street.
what is the speed limit on that road?
20 maybe?
Well, I think it's posted at 20, but probably legally it's 30, but I mean, I don't think speeding is an issue, it's just.
Let's see what the
We need
report
staff-
back
let's
is.
report
Let's just move this.
Yeah, let's move this along and
I just don't wanna waste staff time.
Yeah.
I would say put place on file, move to place on file.
okay.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And then Old Business Columbia Street requests to permit parking on one side of Columbia Street by resident. Simple motion is moved to place on file.
Second.
All those
Motion to file.
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And then Chief, the police monthly accident report, please.
You bet, thanks, Mr. Chair. Total crashes in the month of April, 56, 30 of which were reportable. We had one occasion of a motor vehicle versus a bicyclist and one occasion of a motor vehicle versus a skateboard, pedestrian skateboard, riding on a skateboard. The car versus bicycle was at the intersection of Market Street and 95 North off-ramp at exit 7. The operator of the vehicle was summoned. The bicyclist didn't do anything wrong. And in the pedestrian on the skateboard was on Lafayette Road, otherwise known as Route 1. And the skateboarder veered out of the bike lane or the fog line and more or less hit the vehicle as opposed to the vehicle hitting the skateboarders, both with minor injuries. Both occasions.
Erica, and then Mary Lou.
Do we only see, you mentioned that there have been severe injuries from
Just gonna
some
say that.
e-bike users. Do we only see incidents here that involve a motor vehicle? So if it's a bicycle crash on
Yeah.
its own, we don't.
Yeah,
that
kid on the
doesn't come
side
here?
street who goes home needing 20 stitches in his knee and mom and dad bring him to the ED. We don't see that, but we'll hear about it.
But even if you got called,
No, if
911
a,
gets called because a kid is down,
no,
that still doesn't show up in this data,
no,
right?
these are a combination of property damage accidents and state reportable accidents. So whether it's an e-bike or a bicycle, bicyclists, we have those not infrequently. That we'll get a call that there's a car versus bicycle accident with serious injuries. We'll get there. Turns out the car's pulled over to help the bicyclist who merely crashed. There's no report. We don't use. There's CAD activity for that for police and fire response, but there's no report, and it wouldn't show up here.
Okay.
I think that's important information, however, for the public to
Yeah.
see. These number of electric, bicycle, et cetera,
Crashes.
accidents.
Well, one of the things that our internal committee found is that we're going to speak with dispatch about creating a new CAD call type, so which would be like a bicycle contact or a bicycle stop, because police officers have the authority to stop a bicycle or bicyclist at any time and do an inspection on that bike for proper working reflectors, things of that nature. So to better track our activity, I already talked to dispatch, and they do have the ability to add bike or bicycle related call, because we don't really have that right.
Great, that's good.
So is your staff, I'm sorry. Is your staff gonna have to go to like e-bike training?
No.
to learn about
No.
when they stop them?
No.
Just take
That's
the.
getting a little in the weeds for
I know,
us.
it's just a question.
Yeah, anybody have anything for miscellaneous?
Just miscellaneous.
Move to adjourn.
Boy, I had some miscellaneous. I had asked Ben before, we talked about this, about the signage at the private lots, a better indication that they are private lots and not public, and I haven't seen that occur. I haven't seen new signage.
Draft sign.
I share your frustration. My understanding is with legal department.
Oh,
Unless Eric
with
has
legal?
other ideas. Yes. I would much prefer better signage.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourned.
Second.
May I lose-
That's it, okay.
There's goodies in the box.